Good morning. You're listening to Blaine's World Show, heard each Wednesday here on WPVM 103.7 in Asheville, North Carolina. You can also listen online at WPVM.org and watch us on WPVM's Facebook page. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely Fairview, North Carolina. Each week we focus on the Asheville theater scene, as well as on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce my first two guests, and they are William, or Will is okay? Will be informal? Okay, William Ezzell? Ezzell, I'm getting close. And Dillon Giles, and welcome aboard, guys.
Thank you for having us on.
But you have to now say exactly like Dillon did. You have to wave to all your fans and friends in Facebook world. So we'll get, okay, great. Will is a visual and performing artist who's lived and worked in Western North Carolina since 2018. Although this is his first show at HART and also the first time on Blaine's World Show, I think.
Yeah.
He has been performing on stage since the age of 5. His favorite WNC roles include Trekkie, Monster, that's where I first saw you in Avenue Q, Dr. Frankenfurter in the Rocky Horror Show, and Man 3 in First Aid. Dillon Giles is a professional actor currently based out of Asheville. He is excited to join the wonderful Joseph cast at HART and thanks his family and friends for their support. Favorite roles include Quasimodo in Hunchback of Notre Dame, Tony in West Side Story, and El Gallo in The Fantastics. Let me ask you the first question, and Dillon's had me ask this before, but Will, you said you started when you were 5 years old acting?
Okay. Yeah.
What was your first role?
It was a show called Clayville. It's kind of similar to Greater Tuna. It was a show about a small town in Texas, and both my parents played the two old ladies in town. So my dad played the crotchety old lady with a shotgun, and my mom played a sweeter old lady. And they needed kids with water guns to run through the radio station scene. And so that was my first show.
Because the fundraising idea I have, Will, and I do want somebody to do an area, is I want everybody to do their very first role, as a fundraiser. Like when you were running through the set, did you have any dialogue to say or just shoot the water gun?
I think we just yelled and kind of improv.
Okay. Do you remember your first speaking gig?
It's been a long time.
Okay. Well, anyway, you'll think about it. And that's why I want to have you do that first bit. Dillon, I've asked you before, but let me ask you again. Your first role was what?
My very first role was the ringmaster in the ABC circus in kindergarten.
Now, did you folks take a video of that?
Oof, probably. There's probably one somewhere.
Yeah. But wouldn't that be great to just do it, at HART or some place as a fundraiser? Everybody does 5 minutes, the very first role they ever did. Oh, yeah. And we could have it to show the world.
Yeah, that'd be a fun time.
So we've progressed a little bit since then, and I highlighted some of the shows I've seen both you guys in, and two of my favorite performers. But let's go right into the show you're in now, and then time permitting, we'll talk about some other stuff. But right now, I see you're at the HART Theatre, and you're going to be doing what shows coming up? I'll have Will start it, and then we'll go Dillon.
This show actually, it's Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Oh, so is that cool? Everybody got a shirt? Who's in the show?
This is actually, I did this show back in high school as one of the featured soloists. So this is my old high school shirt, and I decided to wear it today to show on the show.
Well, that's pretty cool, and it still fits?
It barely.
So wait, the role when you were in high school, was it the same role you have now? Or
it is not. Currently, I'm playing Joseph, but when I did it back in high school, I played Zebulon, the island soloist.
Oh, in Benjamin Calypso?
Yes, so he sings the Benjamin Calypso song at the end of the show.
For the benefit of the folks who've never seen it, and there are some, I think, give me, if you would, Dillon, the Reader's Digest version of the show.
It basically follows the story of Joseph from the Bible. Joseph had 11 brothers, and he was the favorite of the father. The brothers didn't like it, so they decided they were going to get rid of him. They sold him to some Ishmaelites to go to Egypt. He then went to Egypt and became like one of the favorite slaves of Potiphar. And
now, hopefully, it froze you a little bit. Let's hope we get out of it. Can you? I don't know if you, there you go. Okay, you were frozen a little bit.
He became a favorite slave of Potiphar when he got sold to Egypt. and then he was thought that he had slept with his wife, so he got thrown in jail, and then later was pulled out of jail for his ability to read into dreams and see what they meant. So he became the Pharaoh's right-hand man and saved the land from a famine. And then his brothers came back to Egypt, and he revealed himself to them to still be alive, and everyone became a happy family again.
Well, that's quite some plot to the story. In
Yep.
the show, at heart, are there 11 brothers do we get to see?
There are.
Oh, yeah.
There are. We've got 11 brothers. We've got a really good ensemble cast as well. We've got the Pharaoh, some narrators, a great band.
Yeah, the narrators in this production will be split into 3 different people.
Yeah.
So we have sort of...
And Will, what's your role in this?
I'm Levi, Joseph's best brother.
Okay. So he has some best brothers. you're the good brother.
Just one.
Now, had you ever been in the show before?
I hadn't. I've seen it before. I haven't seen it live, but my family used to have the Donny Osmond version on VHS, and I think it was one of the first film stage productions I ever remember seeing.
Well, that's interesting you said that, because I always wonder with an actor about seeing a show before you're in it. I mean, you saw that as a kid, but have you seen that recently?
No, I haven't. Not in years.
I actually saw it for the first time like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting to see it because it's such an old movie, but I'd never watched it or anything like that.
Well, in general, if you're going to have a role, how do you feel about seeing it before, right before you do it? Some people don't like it. Some people like it.
I don't like to do it. I avoid it at all costs usually.
I'm torn.
Yeah. Because it kind of, throws you a little bit in terms of how you do the role.
Yeah, I like to watch it after I.
Yeah. Again, we're having a little bit more technical difficulty here. But we got our froze. So anybody who's listening to this, we're also videotaping on Facebook Live, and sometimes we're freezing a little bit. So stay with us, and we're back to Will and Dillon. So the show itself. So talk a little bit more. Something very exciting to me. There's an orchestra at the show.
Yes, there's a band. They're instead of in the pit, they're up on a bandstand behind us, so they're on the stage the whole time, visible. And they also play some characters in the show.
And so there are how many people in it?
I want to say it's 5 or 6 people in the band. We actually, tonight will be the first time we actually perform with the band. They've been learning all their own stuff on their own, and tonight's the night we throw it all together and see how it goes.
So I'm curious, the reaction of you guys in terms of having a band versus a track. How do you feel about that?
I much prefer a live band. It's a lot harder to sing with a pre-recorded track because, they can't a pre-recorded track can't adapt tempo or anything for what's going on live on stage. So yeah, I much prefer a live band.
Feeling the same thing too?
I would agree with that. At some points, I think there is a benefit to a track depending on how large a scale it is and how professional your cast is versus if it's just like children in a community theater, stuff like that. Like, when people do like Wizard of Oz, I could see it being easier for the Munchkins to have tracks so that it's always the same every time. But I always enjoy a live band way better. I think they, like you said, adapt so well. The
advantage, though, I guess, to a track, though, is from a rehearsal standpoint, or when you're learning this stuff, you practice off the track. Is that correct?
That would probably be the biggest upside to a track.
And we've rehearsed with tracks for this show, but like Dillon said, tonight is our first rehearsal with everyone here, like with the whole board.
Because Dillon's point, I just saw, I was recently in Pennsylvania, and I saw a production of South Pacific, and it was a professional theater, but they were off a track. I was really disappointed. But again, also, Will, I guess it's an economical standpoint. That people tell me that, but I don't quite understand it because that'd be like saying, "Well, you won't act; you'll just mouth." It's like to me, it's like lip syncing. We won't have actors; they'll just lip sync it, and that would kind of defeat the purpose of it, I would think.
Yeah. So the other economical side of it is if you don't have to pay orchestra members, then there's more money for the show budget.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, and again, I'm very impressed that you're going to have 5 or 6 people in it. Will Sarah be one of them?
Yes, Sarah is. Even though she's actually one of the narrators but she's going to be being the narrator, and she's the music director, and she's the piano one player.
And she's Joseph's understudy.
Yeah.
In her spare time. Well, we're laughing, but that's something also you don't see in local theater. I don't think I've ever seen it. Are there ever understudies in local theater?
I have seen it done. Back in Florida, I did some shows where I was a part of a show, but also an understudy for a main character. If they had parts, like if they were going through some stuff at that time where it might come up where you needed someone to cover for them. I know there's been scenarios like that, or small shows that only have like 2 or 3 people. Sometimes they'll have an understudy that covers multiple roles in there, and maybe they'll get like an understudy show night, but it's not very often or common.
Because what's amazing, in all the time I've been in Asheville, maybe 12, 13 years, I only saw one show. It didn't get canceled. It was the Santa Claus one, David Sedaris, and the guy, and the guy just lost his mom, so they had the director kind of read it. He did as well as he could. But it's amazing, isn't it, how theater runs as well as it does? That very few people, I don't know if you've seen it, miss performances. It's just amazing. And even coming out to HART, the traffic and driving out there every day, it's amazing. 99.7% make it. Story on the guy you met in our pre-show, Jimmy Ferraro, our guest the second half. He just told me he was in Fiddler on the Roof 3,000 times. Wow. He never missed one performance. So that's pretty outstanding. Have you guys ever missed a performance?
I don't believe so. I don't think I have. My first professional theater gig I was in was a outdoor tourism show, and I did it for 2 seasons. And each season was, I think, 56 performances. And I'm pretty sure I made all of those. It'll be 112.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
I played different people in it, but I don't think I ever.
The thing that amazes me about the both of you, when I see you perform, is that you'll be doing a show now, and when all the theaters are open in Asheville, you'll also be rehearsing another one, and then rehearsing. Like, have you ever done three shows at once? You're in one show, rehearsing 2 others. Have you ever done that, Dillon?
I have. I've done it. I know at least once, maybe twice. It was something like I was doing a one night little variety thing, right. And then I had a show I was in and a show I was rehearsing for.
I think I've only ever done 2 at a time. I was thinking about that the other day. I think the most I've ever done is 2. If they overlap by 3s, it's like what Dillon was saying, where it'll be like a variety show and then 2 actual shows with like big rehearsal schedules.
Is that tough to do though, even doing 2 at a time?
No, it's fine.
It gets a little tiring. I actually was just thinking about it. I'm doing, as I think about it.
We're losing Dillon again. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Ooh, am I
We can
back?
hear you.
There we go. Okay. Go ahead. You said you were starting to talk about it?
I'm doing 3 right now. I'm doing Joseph right now, and then I'm practicing for the David Faces of Love show, and I start next week scattered rehearsals for, I just got cast in Denton the Dragon, which they're putting on in January, a children's family show, a brand new musical that I just got cast in. And we're going to start rehearsing randomly, like 1 day a week or 1 day here, 1 day there, starting next week.
Where will that be? Where's that going to be?
Oh, that's going to be at the Black Mountain Center for Performing Arts. And I think it's the first weekend of January.
Okay. Something to look forward to. Let's talk a little bit about some of the other stuff you're doing. So back to, first of all, this show. This show opens up when? What's the opening date?
Friday.
Oh, what opens this?
Yeah.
Right?
Friday. I'm trying to look.
I'm pretty sure it's
date.
The 27th. It's the 27th.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. This Friday, the 27th.
Okay, yeah. Just for the benefit of people listening or watching, we're taping the show in advance, so we don't know when it's going to air, but it's going to. It opens on this Friday, and thank you for reminding me, because I got to try to get it. You have the dress rehearsal, I think, or the run through on Thursday.
Thursday, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That'll be final. Yeah.
And so, how long does the show run through?
Till September 17th.
Okay, so it's a nice run.
Yeah, it's 4 weekends.
Now, is it going to be the main theater or the other one?
It's in the main stage, yes.
Okay, so that's people want to get tickets to. The best bet is to go to Heart. What do you remember? Do you have the website handy?
I believe it's hearttheater.com.
Org.
Oh, yeah, hearttheater.org.
Okay, so if you want to get tickets, please go to hearttheater.org. And you spell, by the way, theater, I believe, the correct way. Is that correct? You spell it with an R-E, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Hearttheater.org. Okay, the correct way. And so definitely get tickets to it. And you started talking to Dillon, and I'll ask Will to talk about it as well. So as this is going on, you're doing some other shows too over the next couple of months. And let's hope they all run and open up. So I'll first go to Dillon, then I'll go to Will. So what else you have coming up on the agenda?
Well, I have that Den and the Dragon musical I'm just starting rehearsals for, but that won't be until January. So I won't really start rehearsing that till probably December. And then I've got this next show coming out, which Will and I are actually both in. It's called David Faces of Love. It's a brand new musical written by a local singer and musician, I believe. His name's Fred Northup. I used to do barbershop with him back when I did barbershop a couple years ago. And it follows the story of King David from the Bible. And it's going to be a staged concert version of the show because they want to see how it works to then maybe next year produce an actual full musical production of it.
And it's going to be exciting. That's at Diana Wortham.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know the date on that offhand?
I believe it's September 28th.
Okay. And by the way, if folks want to get more information on that show or any others, they can check Dillon or Will's Facebook page. Also, we've now started on Facebook an entertainment page. So check that. It'll have the information on that as well. Now, will there be rehearsals for that too?
Yes, they start on the 2nd of September.
So that's another one. You'll be doing this show and then running to rehearsals. So one of the things you guys both get is you also get a pair of roller skates in terms of what you do in terms of going from one theater to the other and one job to another. Still, and also you amaze me too. You also work 3 different jobs at the same time?
Yeah, just one job, but it's 5 days a week, all day, week long. It's a 40-hour-a-week job.
So you get a lot of sleep. Is that correct? You get a lot of sleep.
Oh yeah, tons of sleep. It's really good.
Technical difficulties. Well, the same thing too. So you're working on this. What else do you have coming up?
The same thing. So David Faces of Love, and then I don't have anything scheduled after that yet. I'm kind of excited for a break for a minute. I was kind of been a lot of overlapping stuff, and so I'm going to take a break. I'm doing some acting studio classes with Ethan Henry, who is the administrator at SART, and he's the artistic director there as well.
So where will those be?
On Zoom.
Oh, okay, cool. Now talk about during the past year, the coronavirus, affected you just a little bit, from having nonstop to doing very little for a period of time. How do you guys react to that? How do you handle it?
I mean, it was really tough for me. I was supposed to direct a show at SART last May. We were going to do Sister Act, and I was supposed to direct that. And that was going to be my first show to direct here in Western North Carolina. So I was very excited about it. I had already, started planning things. And then I was in a show at SART in March, and we did one weekend of performances. And then Kirsten and I were actually at the theater the next Thursday to get things ready for the next run. And the news came that the show was canceled. And so we were there and took all of our stuff. And then didn't go back into the theater for a long time. I did the virtual concert there. And when I went in, that was probably 3 months after Church Basement Ladies had been canceled. And the Church Basement was still on the stage.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad you got to do at least a couple of shows, a couple of things of the show, right? Before it got canceled. You did a...
Yeah, we did one weekend of performances. So yeah,
so
we worked on it for a month, and so for three performances, it was kind of tough.
I had the same thing too. I had just a little cameo role in a show, and we did the first weekend, and that was it. So I was just grateful we did the first weekend. But that's tough. Dillon, same thing too. What'd you do on your break?
I luckily was in the Fantastics, and that show closed right before the pandemic started happening, like really. But I had been cast in Little Women at ACT, and we'd done 3 weeks or 4 weeks of rehearsals. We were about to go into Tech Week, and they canceled in-person rehearsals, and we moved the whole show to Zoom and did the full production of it on Zoom. And it was nice because the cast still had connection, but also, like, we had already built the set. We were about to get on it and really start going into it, and then we had to just move into a set, into our Zooms. But we had costumes and props, and still were able to have a good time. And then after that, I did a couple of the Zoom things as well. I did a virtual concert also at SART, and then I directed and also was in it the Love SART Valentine's thing that they did earlier this year.
And I thought it was very well done. You know, it was quite well done. But what's your feeling performing, I guess maybe the first time you've done it, virtually versus in person?
Oh, I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it.
How do you feel?
In person is so much better. You really feel.
Well, same thing to you. Could you get into it?
Well, yeah. I mean, for my virtual concert, it was I had the advantage of being on the same stage that I would normally have been on. There just weren't any people in the chairs, empty chairs at empty stages. But so I could still, look out into the house the same way. And one of the things that I actually really enjoyed about the virtual aspect of it is
There's talk.
We're losing you again. Okay. Can you?
The virtual aspect of things was that I had to learn to edit it all together and sort of create emotion through splicing camera angles, and sort of learned the behind the camera aspect of the whole thing. So that was a challenge, but it was fun ultimately, and valuable to have a new skill.
Well, it's funny you said that, because the director of this play, Mark Jones, did the same thing too. He told me that during the virus, he picked up a lot of those skills they never had before. Dillon, I guess you were doing some of that too in terms of the stuff you put on.
No, my roommate is a web designer and a videographer. So Nicole Sumter, she's a stage manager here at HART. And so I just asked her to do it. She had a professional camera and ring lights and all that. And so I just had to do the acting part, and then she pieced it all together for me. She asked for my advice on how I wanted the flow, but I never actually had to get in there in the nitty gritty and do it.
Oh, so now we know the secret, because it was all very well done, but now I know why, because give credit.
Did she do the long track shot of you and Audrey walking down the street?
Yeah, that
was incredible.
That was fun. We did a shot. She had it's like a hip camera that straps on and it stabilizes here. And she just stood in front of us and walked backwards as we did a walking shot down our neighborhood street, singing a song together, which was super fun to do. But also it was like 50 degrees outside, 45 degrees outside. I was dying. It was so cold.
Okay, it was very good. That was movie quality. I liked it.
A lot of fun. Talk about some other stuff you guys have done. You mentioned in the intro, Dillon, I mentioned the Fantastics. Do you have any other couple of favorite roles you've done? Or what's your all-time favorite role?
Oh, goodness. All-time favorite role would probably be Quasimodo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. That was the first show I ever really got paid for, and it's a really amazing tenor role, and there's a big choir, and it's just a show that a lot of theaters won't take on because of how big it is. But back in Florida, we had a huge theater, and so they went for it, and it was just an absolute blast, just diving into a character that everyone knows so well, but no one really knows the real story that well, so you're able to take pieces from everything and do it. So that was really a blast.
Because nobody's ever done that in this area, at least since I've been here.
No, it probably won't happen in this area.
Not with that attitude.
It needs you need like 100 people to do the show, between the choir, your cast, the main people, and your tech crew. So a lot of the stages here don't have room to hold 100 people backstage safely.
Well, certainly not Magnetic Theater, So
well, actually, they're doing it first, for sure.
No, have you ever seen the backstage area at Magnetic Theater?
Yes,
Okay, it's not a big.
It's very spacious.
Yeah, very spacious. Well, same thing too. Then I'll ask a follow-up question. But your favorite role you ever did?
My favorite role, I think, was probably Frankenfurter in Rocky Horror. It was a dream to do that role, and it was also a kind of character where I got to go as far as I wanted to go and be as big as I wanted to be. And it was really just extremely enjoyable. The only regret I have about that show was that we only got to do it one night. It was a one night only thing at the Grey Eagle. We rehearsed it for like 3 months.
Oh, really? What a shame. Yeah, I'm sorry I missed it. Then another question, kind of a follow-up on that. Is there any role that you want to do moving forward?
Any role that I like to do?
Yeah.
Moving forward. Sorry, Dillon. Yeah, there's tons. I mean, one of my dream roles is the bad guy in the show he was just talking about, Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Okay.
A lot, and I like to play them. Frollo is sort of the villain, or there's a clown in Hunchback as well, Clopin, who is he in the musical, like the stage music? Yeah,
he's kind of the narrator.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to play him too. I guess my ultimate dream role of all time is George in Sunday in the Park with George.
Oh God.
Okay, Jimmy, we have somebody in the peanut gallery, and we'll ask him to be quiet. I'm gonna have to mute him. He's our guest the second half. Aside from that, Will, have you ever acted with your wife?
Yeah, she was in Rocky Horror with me. She was Magenta. She was in the show that we both met Dillon in, which was Footloose at ACT. Dillon was.
I didn't realize you were in that. Yeah. Yeah,
I was Coach Dunbar, and Kirsten was one of the high school students. So that was an interesting dynamic. We're actually only 4 years apart, but she looks a lot younger than I do. So I played the coach, and she played a student.
Okay. And Dillon, the same question. Do you have a dream role?
I mean, I've got plenty. Probably two of my biggest ones. I would really like to do Burrs in The Wild Party by Andrew Lippa. Big dream role there. And then I would love to do Edward Bloom in Big Fish, the musical.
Okay.
I did Big Fish once as Carl the Giant, but I just wasn't old enough to be the main guy yet.
It's interesting. It's another show nobody's done here yet. Big Fish.
I know. I'm waiting for them. I feel like it's time. I feel like it's coming.
Okay. And then you were mentioning too, directing. Will was saying you were going to direct a play. Mm-hmm. Is that something you look forward to doing, or you enjoy directing?
Yeah, I think that's my ultimate goal in theater. Like once I'm too old to play the parts I want to play, I guess that's my end career. But that's my.
Again, freezing a little bit. There we go. I'm sorry, you were saying we got cut off.
That's my ultimate, I guess, theater dream is to create stories on stage, to bring visions to life and tell stories and touch people emotionally through the theater. And
just to recap, that I'm speaking to Will and Dillon, and they're going to be Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dream. That opens again. What date is the opening date?
Friday, October 27th, August 27th through September 17th.
And to get tickets for it, the best bet is do what?
www.hearttheatre.com. That's theater spelled the correct way with an R-E.
And com spelled O-R-G.
It is .org.
But I think it is, yeah. Hearttheatre.org. Anyway, hope to see you guys in the show. Be amazing in it. Be amazing in the show itself. And hopefully I'll see you soon. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Blaine.
Okay. And as they kind of disappear, if I can make this disappearing act work, this is going to be a talent if I can get rid of you guys. And there you go. We're going to bring in our second guest, and who is listening in from the background, and asked. There we go. And as Jimmy works his way in, Jimmy will be within 1 second. I just want to mention to everybody that they're listening to the Blaine's World Show, heard here on WPVM on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. WPVM's mission is to foster community through programming that cultivates dialogue to inform and entertain. The station provides the medium for artists, business, community leaders, and nonprofits to share their voice on live radio. Listeners are invited to help support WPVM's efforts by making a tax-deductible contribution. They can do so by going to the website, WPVMFM.org, and looking at the donate option on the upper right-hand side. It's next my pleasure to introduce Jimmy Ferraro. And Jimmy Ferraro is not only a friend, but he's also an actor, a producer, director, and bon vivant, of course. And you can feel free to wave to all your friends on Facebook, Jimmy.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, and Jimmy Ferraro, I should mention, is an award-winning actor, producer, and director. He is now producing and directing interactive musical comedy murder mystery dinner theater at the Waverly Inn. And that's just maybe one of about 17 things he's doing. Even as we do this show, you're not in the Asheville area today. You're in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
What are you doing in Chicago?
I'm promoting a brand new musical for this area, certainly. It's a tribute to the comedian Belle Barth. Do you probably remember that name, Blaine, from many years ago? Belle Barth sold over 3 million adult party records in the 50s and 60s. And she was compared to as she was called, actually, the female Lenny Bruce.
You know, it's funny you say that because I was telling you off the air about this show that it's a two-part show about the history of stand-up comedy. And he just was talking last week, the person who does it, about stand-up comedians and how few women were. And he talked about the record started getting popular in the 50s and 60s. I don't know her, though. Did you know her then?
I didn't, but Belle Barth was a force of nature. She was really the pioneer for blue humor from a woman. Yeah. Kind of set the stage for comics like Joan Rivers and Roseanne and
right.
Amy. Yeah. You know, people just don't remember her. And I felt that it was an important part of entertainment history to bring her life story to the stage, so more people could know about Belle Barth, because she led an unbelievable life. She started out when she was 16 years old in the Catskills in New York at the different hotels there, like the Lux Sheldrake. Some of you from up in that way may remember that hotel. She started off actually as a singer and introduced "You're Nobody to Somebody Loves You." People don't.
No, I know the song.
That was her song.
So this is going to be her story?
This is her story.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's filled with her actual routines.
Yeah. So now, do we know who's going to play her?
Well, we're working on that right now. I haven't signed any contracts, but I do have an actress that's going to portray her here in Chicago, and one in Asheville as well when we do it at the Magnetic Theater. Okay. And the title is Raunchy Little Musical.
Oh, so
Belle Barth is back.
Oh, how I love the title. So now, had you ever written anything before? Well, you read the murder mysteries, but nothing like this, though. Had you?
I didn't write this piece. Actually, this piece was brought to me probably maybe more than 11 years ago. And at that time, I wasn't ready to produce and direct this particular show. But the playwright and composer for Raunchy Little Musical are Chicago residents. And they brought me this play, like I said, 11 years ago, and I wasn't ready to do something like this. And then maybe 4 or 5 years ago was brought to my attention again, and I was able to collaborate with them on the script and on the music and lyrics, and we showcased it in Tampa, Florida. And then from Tampa, we brought it to Port Washington, New York, where it had a 6-week successful engagement.
Oh, how fun it is. And it's also a musical, too?
It's a musical, yes. Now, it's also, what we did is it was originally a 2-person show, and over the pandemic, we collaborated once again and made it into a 1-person musical.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's what it seems like, her life story.
Right through.
But so I'm so excited for it because, again, I was just telling you that there were so few, especially in the 50s, stand-up female comedians and female comedians who were dirty, at the time. Uh-huh. So it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Bill says, talk dirty in a cute way.
So you're now, talk about in the process. So you're in Chicago. You're looking for what? Theaters to put it on?
Yeah. At theaters, I saw 4 theaters already while I'm here for the last 2 days. So one of them or 2 of them might be the right ones, but I have more to see this week.
And then what's the hope that it'll be produced in Chicago this coming March, is it? Or when do you look to produce?
February or March, right in that time period, and also about that time period in between in Asheville at the Magnetic Theater.
Okay. And these will be the first since you saw the test runs you ran of it. This will be the first full productions of the show?
Yes. And this will be actually the very first production of the one-woman version.
Very exciting, though.
Yeah.
So, Jimmy, your career, I think, is also exciting, too, in terms of, I didn't mention it, but in another life, you had been a Broadway actor, and you've been acting in primarily the most famous role, of course, was in Fiddler on the Roof. I can see it. But I did see you one time act. I'd love to see you in Fiddler. But Fiddler, you did a couple of shows in Fiddler.
A few.
How many?
Over 3,000 performances. Even I can't wrap my tongue around that.
Wow, that's a lot of performances of Fiddler. And most of them...
I did 3 national tours, and I also did it on Broadway.
Yeah.
And then I did the last national tour, starred in it, opposite my wife, Dieta Rowe.
Oh, she was in that too?
Yeah, she played Golda.
Oh, really?
Me, and that was the national tour in 2012 and 2013.
Now, I don't know if she's listening or she will be, but talk about the idea. I've always wondered about performing with a spouse on stage. 2 parts. One, in terms of lines, do you run lines by each other?
We do.
Yeah.
We do. We've been married now for 34 years, but we only had performed in one show together for so many years. It was How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. And then it's the first time that we played opposite each other was in the last national tour of Fiddler. The very first time. And we celebrated our 25th anniversary.
Okay. Oh, really? For the show.
So there we were on stage singing after 25 years. It's not to know. So a funny story, Blaine, is that they made a big deal out of, the producers made a big deal out of it being our 25th anniversary. So what they did is they gave out red roses to couples that were celebrating their anniversary. And after the show, they would be taking pictures with us. It was a publicity.
Oh, lovely. I love it. Yeah.
So, but after the matinee on our anniversary, they brought 24 red roses out on stage to hand to Dieta, and the curtain came down, and the stage manager ran across the stage, grabbed the roses, says, "We have to use this again tonight. Bye."
Now, I want to answer the question a little bit differently. I may have told you this, but you're going to use it with your wife as well. So you've been married, you said, what, 30, how many years?
It'll be 4 years in September.
Okay. Now I want to share something I've never shared on the air with anybody, but you can use this and ask me instead how long I've been married.
How long have you been married, Blaine?
Not long enough.
Oh,
and
I
that's what
feel that.
Did I tell you that? Well,
No.
I don't know if I ever told you, but next time I see you and your wife, or you have to in front of other people, and somebody will ask you, or I'll ask you, Jimmy, how long have you been married? Will you remember that? I'm telling you.
I will, but I also might say we've had 25 wonderful years. And she would say, we've been married 34. As I said, we'd had 25 wonderful years together.
So Jimmy, the amazing thing about you is, so you did all that acting, and then all of a sudden you come to Atlanta, you come to Asheville a couple of years ago, and you may have done it before, but now all of a sudden you've turned to producing shows in Asheville. And how do you enjoy doing that?
I love it. I've been producing and directing shows for many, many years all over the country. And we love the Asheville area. We love living in Hendersonville and being so close to Asheville and all of the art and theaters and music. And there's a lot of talent here. And I'm very fortunate enough to be able to kind of get cream of the crop for my murder mysteries, which is very exciting. The ones that we're doing now at the Waverly Inn in downtown Hendersonville.
And talk about that. That since you've been in the Asheville area, last couple of years, you're putting on these murder mysteries. And I think what you've written some of them.
Yes, I have.
Also,
and so interactive
Right.
music, comedy, murder mystery dinner shows. Now that's a mouthful.
Right. But talk about what happens then at that. So people come, the Waverly Inn, and we'll talk about an upcoming one, I think, coming this week in advance of the show. What's the next one coming up?
The one that's coming up on September 9th and 12th is called Funeral for a Gangster.
Okay. Now, did you write this one?
I did not.
Okay.
But it's a roaring 20s. It's 1928. And the family is holding a memorial service for Vito the Gut Marzetti. And everybody is invited. So when the guests come in, they know that they're going to a memorial service where they meet Joey the Lump and Frankie Marbles, Ruby Fingers Marzetti, and Lena, the grieving widow. Or is she?
So describe it for the benefit of people who've never seen one of these shows. I saw one that you produced, but typically they come in and they get dinner beforehand. Is that the idea?
Yeah, but that is there's a social hour beforehand. They arrive and there's a cash bar, and the actors are mingling.
Oh, nice.
With the guests. And then at a certain time, the actual show starts, but it comes out of the mingle. So it just starts to happen. And the guests are encouraged to really listen for clues because they're the ones that have to solve the murder.
Now, do they solve the murder?
They do.
I mean, but there could be, I remember the show I saw, there can be different scenarios, right? That different people.
That's true.
You have to guess at.
Red herrings where you think, is that the one that committed the murder? Could be. But then again, what about her? So what happens is that we have that mingle, we do a little portion of the show, then the salad is served. And then after that's cleared, the actors mingle once again, and the guests are given play money to bribe the to get clues. But there are prizes to be had if you guessed who the murderer was. And then again, that follows with the sequence when doing a little bit more of the show. Then they serve the entree, doing a little bit more. There's an inquisition. And then finally the dessert. And they have ballots at their table that they fill out for who they think the murderer is and how they were killed and why.
Sounds like, for people attending, it sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh my goodness, I'm telling you, we have a lot of fun because there's singing, there's dancing, there's comedy, there's serious. I mean, it's everything all rolled into one, but most of all, it's to have a great time.
Now, to your credit, Jimmy, in terms of directing, that you put together, I know most of the people in most of your plays, you have put together some really tremendous casts,
Yes.
but for some of these actors, it's a different kind of performance. It's, I guess, do you need a different skill set or do you need different direction to?
What it is? Just that it's up close and personal because everybody is seated at tables and the actors go right up to the tables to talk with them during the mingle. And the action is happening in between the tables and the Waverly room is so intimate. It's like being at a private party. And the audiences have just loved it. You should see us doing a conga line through the hotel. I mean, everybody was up on their feet and dancing and having a great time.
Well, I was asking you too. So for some actors, it's probably a stretch. Some people adjust to it right away. But do you need a different skill set to act in one of these shows?
You know what? Improvisation is really great, especially for the mingle, because when people are talking to you and you have to be able to answer their questions without giving away too much of the clues. And being personable, I mean, that has a lot to do with it. And actually, what's really good is to divert their attention.
Yeah.
Divert their attention to their questions.
Have you found some performers adapt to this better than others? I mean, I know some of the performers you have, I think would just be spectacular. But do some people have trouble doing this interactive stuff? And
I think There could be, if you have some more of a beginner, but I direct them in a fun way to approach the part, and they are relaxed by the time we do the show. We only have 3 rehearsals. That's it. 3 rehearsals, and it's showtime.
And how many shows do they typically put on?
2 performances for that weekend,
Okay, so
and we do them once a month at the Waverly.
and we'll obviously leave off some of the people, but if you can give a shout out, just
And they get paid.
they get paid too. Just shout out, and they get bribes too. So if they collect the money too on the side, I'd be curious. Anybody ever try to give a cash, real money? Forget this fake money. I'll give real money. Give a shout out to some of the people you have. I won't mention everybody, but
No. Yes, I mean, very popular actors in Asheville like Mike Yao and Karen Yao, and we have Trissa King, Ellen Pappas, Bob Pompeo. We're bringing in for the first time Pasquale de la Cante. He's coming in. He was most recently starred in the one-man show Goodnight Gracie at HART.
Did you see that too?
I did see it. He was wonderful.
Yeah, he's just a great. You're gonna love him. He's just a talented actor. So I'm glad bringing him in.
Kirsten, whose husband was just on the show tonight too.
Right.
We have her. She's with us. Holly Ann Caldwell. We've got a great bunch of people.
Let me ask you, Jimmy, too. If anybody's listening or watching,
yes,
I guess, are you always looking if somebody would want to be in a future show? Can they contact you? Absolutely.
They can go right to my Facebook page, which is Murder Mystery for Hire Inc. Murder Mystery for Hire Inc. And they could just send me a message that way, or to my Jimmy Ferraro Facebook page as well.
Now, you mentioned too that you have a bunch of these shows. How many do you have that you typically put on?
Once a month.
I mean, but how many different shows? You mentioned this one coming up. There are other.
Yes, well, we've done Till Death Do Us Part. We also had a country western one. We have the Funeral for a Gangster, which is coming up September 9th and 12th. And then we're doing a Hillbilly Massacre in October. And, I just kind of come up with these shows, and I try to give, different themes, some diversity, and bang, bang, you're dead.
How many have you actually written?
What's that?
How many have you written?
I've written about 5 of them right now that I've been using, but I have a whole bunch that I've written before.
Oh, so there are a bunch of these floating around.
Yeah.
Aside from these shows, have you written any other shows?
Actually, during the pandemic, I collaborated with the playwright of the raunchy little musical Belle Barth show,
right,
and composer Ilya Levinson, who is a Grammy-nominated composer. And we wrote a new musical called Bemidji and the Rhythm Rockets.
I love it.
10-person musical, and it's based on the life of my real-life mother-in-law, Eleanor Rowe, who was a featured tap dancer with all of the great stars. She even performed with the Three Stooges. She performed with, she danced with Buddy Epson. She danced with Ray Bolger. From the Wizard of Oz, the Scarecrow, and she played with all of the big bands, Martha Ray, Helen O'Connell. These are all names from the late 30s and 40s. And she was too short to be a Rockette. It was something she always wanted to be. So she auditioned for the Rockettes. They wanted her, but when they asked her how tall she was, when they called her up, she said 5'2", and they said, thank you. But she got in a touring company called the Rhythm Rockets. And they were the touring company that did all of the choreography for the Rockettes, from the New York City Rockettes. So she was on tour all over the country. And it has some of her really great stories in that. And part of her life, how difficult it was when she got married and her husband went off to war and she was still dancing. Did
you ever see her perform?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, my mother-in-law was one of the finalists in the Miss senior Florida pageant. At 80 years old, she tap danced her brains out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Fabulous tap dancer.
no, but just the idea of the story seems like fantastic,
Yeah, no, kind of like an old-fashioned musical.
yeah. And you don't have them, anymore, kind of thing. So
And
that's
10, so it's doable.
okay. Wait, I'm sorry. What was the cast of what?
10.
10. We were just talking, you heard the first half. They're talking about a show, Jimmy. Can you imagine with 100 people in it? You don't see too many big musicals. But even your murder mysteries have a nice sized cast. How many you have in those?
Yeah, anywhere from 6 to 8.
Yeah.
And then I do a big one, which was like when I did my big fat Italian wedding murder.
All right, I saw that.
About 11 or 12 people in it.
Now, question for you, Jimmy. In terms of what you do, so you have a bunch of these things: acting, directing, producing, writing. Now, do you have a favorite thing to do?
I think my favorite thing to do is directing. With directing, I feel like there's a piece of me in every actor that's on that stage. And to develop something, from the black and white written page, and then to see it brought to life, it's very rewarding.
And the other thing too, and it's funny because I asked several actors or directors where they prefer, and most do seem to say they prefer directing, But the truth is, of course, that you don't have to memorize you don't have to memorize anything. But
I know.
say, what?
Jimmy, don't you miss performing? Would you ever perform again? I says, well, I might perform it, but it has to be a role that I've already done.
I was going to ask you, because other than I saw you in one of the murder mysteries, and I guess sometimes you pinch hit in those or do something in those. What was the last thing you actually acted in, not a murder mystery?
The last thing was when I started Hairspray in California.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see you being in that role.
Yeah. And that was great fun. I did it at the Sierra Repertory Theater Company. And their promo was, because I did Fiddler there also, so their promo was, you may have seen him as Papa. Yeah. But now he's playing Mama.
I love it. But I can see you, that would be a perfect role for you, was it?
Oh, it was. It was. The director, phenomenal. We did that Timeless to You number, and it brought the house down.
Aside from Tevye, do you have a favorite role?
Yeah, well, there's some stock roles that I've done. Like I've done Fiddler over 3,000 performances. I've done over 1,000 performances of Sancho in Man of La Mancha.
Oh, I can see it, yeah.
Over 1,000 performances of Nicely and Guys and Dolls. Those were I call stock roles.
Right.
So I've been called in at the last moment when when they needed someone to replace one of those characters. And, I can just go in and get through the show.
Yeah. But I can see you in each of those kinds of roles. You ever have a role you wanted to play but never did? Your dream role?
My dream role was Fiddler on the Roof, playing Tevye. That was my dream role. And I know that there were other Tevyers that did it up in their 80s. They were still playing Tevye. But, I thought, oh, my goodness, what if they, instead of saying Papa, they'll be like, Grandpa. But it's a role I still can play, and I wouldn't mind doing that again. I mean, I loved playing Tevye.
I was going to ask you a question. I always wonder about actors, especially you, Jimmy, that is it tough to play a role repeatedly? How do you get up after you've done it 2,987 times? Is it tough to do it the 2,988th time?
I get that asked of me quite a bit from actors in the community and around the country. And the thing is that I remind myself that every performance is an opening night. And there are people in the audience that have never seen this before. So make it an opening night every night.
Yeah. Can you believe it? People haven't seen the show, and there are.
No, but there are.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, Jimmy, that I guess when kids see a show, like Standards, and it's just discussing this with my wife the other day. I saw her when I was in Pennsylvania. I saw South Pacific,
Yeah.
And what was amazing, Jimmy, you talk about Fiddler, you're talking about some of the other shows. Every song in Fiddler is perfect,
Yeah. Yes.
Every song in South Pacific is like perfect, you know. Yet a lot of current shows, aside from the two you mentioned, you don't have that, you know, that every song is like perfect. But isn't that
Yeah.
something, you know, where my dad used to say that a lot of the current shows, you don't have songs that you're going to remember 20
Right.
years later.
Humming.
What?
Go out of the theater humming. That's how it,
Nothing, you know,
Yeah.
like, you know, and good shows, but they're just not, you know, the same kind of thing. But
right.
people,
It's not Hello Dolly.
yeah, right. But in Hello Dolly is a good example. You were
It
never,
is.
were you ever in Hello Dolly?
Yes, I've been in it many times as Horace Vandergelder and also as
I can see.
so as Rudolph, the head waiter.
But you were never Dolly.
No, not yet. But it is a role that I could play.
But you know, with even Hello Dolly, same point though. Good show, but I don't hum every song in it. You know what I mean?
Right,
Fiddler,
but you walk to the theater going,
right? But the one song, but
yeah.
Les Miserables, every song. You know, it's just a lot of the current shows you don't hum every song. You know,
Right.
it's
It's just
incredible.
Oh.
But I'm trying to think. So I'm trying to think any musicals that you weren't in. So you were in, and you don't see. No,
Well,
by the way,
South Pacific. I've
you
done Phyllis many times.
oh, and as you're describing these roles, I can see you being the perfect Phyllis, you know.
Well, you know, they put the ship on his stomach when he
Right.
does it. Ocean liner.
Yeah. What was your what's the most fun role you've ever had?
Most fun roles. You know, I had a lot of fun also doing Mrs. White in Clue the Musical.
Really? Okay. Because,
That was another very fun role. Although that show isn't done very much.
no, and somebody, by the way, ACT is going to be doing it this year. They're in rehearsal.
Wonderful. You're to see that.
Yet
That was a lot of fun. I loved playing Edna too, and Tevye. I mean, I love being Sancho. You know, every role has its rewards. And it doesn't have to be the lead. It doesn't have to be a support. Whatever role it is, you know, to make it your own is very rewarding.
I can see you also being an excellent, not only director, but teacher. And I've heard that from several people. You know, they love working with you in terms of teaching. Have you done any teaching?
I have, yes. In fact, I'm certified through the New York Voice Teachers Association.
But I can see, you know, in your spare time, offering, you know, of course, a musical theater or something like that, you know, but I haven't seen it too much around here, you know, but to study with you, food for thought, I would think that'd be a natural, or even at the Waverly Inn. And we'll close on the Waverly Inn. Talk about the Waverly Inn, where it is, and describe the place, because I've never been there. I was going to be there that one time.
It's really called the 1898 Waverly Inn, and that's the year that it was built. And it's a historic site. They have 14 bedrooms and bathrooms. It's a bed and breakfast. So we perform our show in their dining room. It's a beautiful place. It's filled with antiques. They've got a tremendous wraparound porch with rocking chairs, and they have a game room that you could play backgammon or cards. They've got a marvelous piano, and they also have an old-fashioned Victrola with 78 records that you could listen to. And the food is fantastic. And we do the theme for each show as to how we plan the menu. So for this big Italian wake, this memorial service, a funeral for a gangster, we're having a peach caprese salad and a 5-cheese lasagna, chocolate truffle gelato. So we're going to certainly get your appetite and your taste buds going.
And certainly people, if they're interested in seeing the show, unfortunately, they're going to have to get their seats early, because you only have how many seats in the house?
32.
That's real.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's like being at a private party. And it's at 73 North Main Street is where the Waverly Inn is. And for tickets, 828-693-9193.
Okay, well, have you repeat that again? If folks want to get tickets. I'm sorry, go ahead.
828-693-9193. And that's at the Waverly Inn Bed and Breakfast in downtown Hendersonville.
And if you want to see it, make sure you get tickets first, because you've told me past couple of shows have been sellout. So congratulations on that. Thank you, Jimmy Ferraro, for being my guest the second half hour. On the
Are we
Blaine Sword
done?
Just
Oh,
about. I'd
what
also like I'd like to thank Will Ezzell and Dillon Giles for being my guest the first half hour. Also, Amy Prisnash, my producer. Look forward to having you join me next Wednesday at 9 a.m. here on WPVM 103.7 in Asheville. And hope to see you soon. Jimmy, just stay with me as I say goodbye to everybody. So
Sure.
I'm going to stop.